Catherine Bearder, Liberal Democrat MEP for the South East, falls again in roaming charges, the cost of using your mobile phone when you're abroad in Europe. How significant are these latest cuts?
It's been a long journey, but we're finally getting there, driving down the cost of everybody when they move country, to driving down the cost of using their mobile phone. We so rely on them these days that having high excessive costs is just not acceptable any longer.
I mean, there have been some studies suggesting that people are often turning their phones off because they're worried about the costs. I mean, is that a good route to go down, or would it be better if people were using their phones as normal as possible?
Well, the more we use them, the more we rely on them, and so having to turn them off, or people feel they have to turn them off when they go abroad, just disrupts their daily life. It's confusing enough being in a different country. We rely on them now for the maps. When we're in a town centre, how do we get our Google map down? How do we send text messages? It isn't just text messages. Lots of the other apps rely on an internet connection. So it becomes part of our daily life. So if you have to turn them off, or feel you have to turn them off, that's not acceptable, which is why we've been driving down the costs all the time. The Lib Dems voted to drive down the costs, and we've been campaigning on this a long time. The Tories voted against the cuts, and UKIP didn't even turn up to vote.
I mean, these cuts, for example, on data roaming, the cap is being halved, and presumably that's an area, you mentioned the use of the internet, presumably that's an area that's kind of growing more than anything else.
It is. The digital use of our phones now is increasing exponentially. I mean, we can only talk for so long to each other, but we use all the different apps on our phone. It's becoming a different type of usage that we're doing, which is why we're driving down the costs of data use.
And longer term, do you think a good aim would be to get rid of roaming charges altogether? That's been something that's being considered at the moment. Perhaps that will be something for European law in the coming few years.
It's something that we're working with the industry to drive down. There has to be some sort of service. If you think of the roaming charges as the roads that we drive on, then we don't pay for roads everywhere we go. Some of the higher speed roads we do have to pay extra charges on, and so there's a debate there to be had with the suppliers of the mobile networks. So what we want to do is have it fair and equitable, so when you're travelling around Europe, you're not penalised, because we all know it's so easy to drive from one country to another, and then you suddenly find it up, pops the message, you're now using more on your telephone. So what we have to do is make it fair right across the European Union, and we have to work with the people who actually build the infrastructure and supply that to our phones.
And are you still at the moment getting in your mailbox perhaps letters from constituents that are having these problems, that are coming home from holiday or coming home from business trips and getting bills that are much higher than they were expecting?
It's a lot less than it was. I mean, the real crisis was when we had the ash cloud and people were stuck all over Europe trying to find ways, and their bills were astronomical, and that has been a real driver for us to get them down. I'm having less complaints, but there's still more to be done, because, as you said earlier, people will turn off their phones rather than use them. We want people to be able to use their phones, stay in contact, and use all the services that they've paid for on their phones. So we want that to be as easy as possible and as fair as possible.
And to sum up then, really, the holiday is just round the corner, and of course businesses often travelling abroad to use phones as well. Lower costs, caps coming, the prices coming down from July.
It's a win-win for everybody, for businesses, for consumers, holiday makers and travellers. We want to have it as fair and equitable right across the European Union, and that's the only fair way. That's what we're here to do, is to make the European Union work for its citizens. That's what we're trying to do here.